gonna edit this part out where we're getting used to it. And yeah, it's always scary when the camera starts.
Oh yeah.
I'm excited today to have a guest speaker with us. This is Michael Richter, and I'm gonna let him give you his licensure and what he is and all that bio about him. But I wanted to catch our viewers up on why we invited him and what we're going to talk about. So, Michael is on his own weight loss journey. And recently, a couple weeks ago, him and I were talking about it. And we were talking about some of the things that I've seen in other patients and some other stuff. And I have been seeing a lot of stuff about body dysmorphia and how... And I've been hearing it. I don't know about body dysmorphia. I'm hearing patients say to me, I don't understand this new body. I don't feel right. I don't see things the same. Like my own personal experiences, I once went to the store. I was a 22. I pulled out a 20. That was way too big. I had to take it back. I had to do an 18. I can't even see myself going down, but I was probably at 8. And I tried every single size. So I've kind of thought about that as a body dysmorphia. But when we were talking, I kind of mentioned that to you a little bit. And you're like, no, it's not body dysmorphia because it's not that it could lead to it, but it wasn't. And so I just kind of wanted to, you'll see why he's qualified. I just wanted to talk about this. So in that moment when we were talking, I was like, just shut it down. Like, I see that you have a lot to say, and I hate to do these things twice. So I said, just pause this. Let's just have this conversation. So we're going to go back to the moment where I was explaining some things that I'm seeing in patients, and you had some feelings about those.
Well,
so tell us who you are and why we should listen. Tell us all about you.
Michael Richter. I am a state licensed therapist. I've been doing this for 5-6 years now. Primarily focused with trauma and addiction. So one of the things that I've seen just in my tenure of being a therapist has been a lot of individuals who struggle with addiction. So when we start looking in this, we'll get into this because I've been doing a lot of research since we talked, and you're going to be surprised when I'm done.
I'm ready to learn. I did no research because I want to know. I think other people do. So teach us.
It's interesting because when you start looking at like stuff with like body dysmorphia, and so like I went back after we talked, and it was funny because you have one idea, and that's because of things we're seeing in society now. People talk about body dysmorphia, and there's all of these things. Well, the first hallmark of it is there's something you're unhappy with about yourself. And so anyone watching this, anyone dealing with this, anyone who's come here, clearly they have something that they feel is wrong with themselves. And so, when we were talking, I was like...
You're saying people that come here have this feeling that
have
there is something
feeling,
in their body that they don't want to have.
And so, like, a lot of times you see it as, like, skin picking, like, I don't like the shape of my jaw or whatever, but one of those categories is weight. And so when you start...
That's what we meant about the editing, so we'll edit that out of the podcast, but we'll only leave that in the YouTube video.
The phone call on the watch, I'm like, what the
Life
hell?
happens, they need to know.
Yeah. So, board certified, I'm a nationally certified counselor. I maintain that. I'm also recipient of Chi Sigma Iota, which is the National Honor Society for Counseling. I do a lot of work. I'm EMDR certified, trained.
That's so cool.
I do a lot of work with cognitive processing therapy. I am technically, according to most professionals, is what's called a master's level trauma professional. So I'm a certified clinical trauma professional.
I was like, is that my audiobook? Because nobody needs to hear that.
Your vampires making love to a werewolf in very dirty ways.
Yes. Nobody should hear that.
That's a phone call from my school. I'm also a PhD candidate. I'm about 7 or 8 classes away from completing my PhD in general psychology. So just looking back at like our conversation and kind of things like I've been dealing with on this almost year now journey. That first one, of course, I came here because there was something wrong. And so the next one is you go to extreme lengths to change those things.
Okay. What's
considered extreme?
Yeah.
Like
is
where
medical
is that?
Injections extreme?
So anything that you would do, so what is it called? Fad dieting. Like I've done keto, I've done Atkins, I've done what's the other one?
Weight Watchers.
No, I haven't done Weight Watchers. Keto, Atkins. I've done several of the fad diets. Oh, gluten free. I did gluten free for a while. Like, and I've done the whole like I've lost 100 pounds and then I gained it all back and then I went on keto and I lost a bunch of weight. And keto is not sustainable.
So you can do it, just not sustain it.
It's not sustainable. So it's like I would go through these periods of time where I'd lose a bunch of weight, and I would hit this plateau of like, okay, well, I'm not losing any weight now. I don't really feel. I'm still kind of like, okay, whatever. But so that's the second hallmark, and the third one is.
And I always kind of feel at that moment like I got this. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need it. I'm doing pretty good. It's not like I'm doing that much, so I'm okay.
This is the crazy thing about the third one is it causes a marked increase in avoidance behaviors basically. So like normally I was a very big social butterfly. I loved hanging out with people. I loved being around people. I would go and I'd be the life of the party. There are plenty of parties that I don't remember what happened with them. But I was the life of the party. I was that big. I'm 6'5" and I'm a big guy. You can see, and I was a force to be reckoned with. And I've noticed over the past year that I've been shying away from all of that.
Uh-huh.
I've been pulling away from people because I don't know who I am.
We're not monetizing on YouTube. We don't make any money off it, so that's the only reason you can't say bad stuff, right? Yeah, so we're fine.
So I didn't know who the hell I was. And like I used to strut. My grandma when I was growing up, she's like, "You've got the Hedrick in you. That's that strutting. Her daddy would do it. She does it, and you just strut." And I'm like, okay, but I'm a big guy, and I would strut. And I knew that I was.
When
you
walked in the room, like
yeah,
there isn't people know you're there.
And so, kind of over this past year since I've been doing this, I've noticed that I shy away from that. I don't have that same persona anymore. And so the reason why I say I don't like to like label things as body dysmorphia or whatever is when we clinicalize something, when it becomes the disease model. And so we look at it from the perspective of a holistic or a disease model. Sometimes when somebody gets the diagnosis that they're an addict, well, it's just I'm an addict.
Mm-hmm.
It's just who I am.
It becomes this excuse that you can use. I have anxiety, I have depression, I'm bipolar, like all of those things. I saw that a lot in where we used to work. We actually used to work together.
Yes.
You get this diagnosis and now you identify with that and you can't be anything other than that.
Yep.
Which I hate this. Like I hate this because for me, I've always just been a little bit different, I guess, in my head. But I love to know all of my clinical diagnosis because then it's like, oh, this is how I need to cope. I need to do this, and then I can still get where I need to go. Like, I just feel more educated. And
now you have a plan.
I have a plan. I can handle this. I can use tools. But I do realize that this is very much not the common thing. I think, it's kind of sidetrack a little, but I noticed this a lot when I was an RN. I ran an allergy clinic, and it just almost got to the point that food testing decreased quality of life because maybe they had small or like it wasn't really affecting them, but they test positive, and now they have this whole life where they have to avoid this, and other people have to change their cooking, and you have to keep a clean kitchen, and so much involvement for what potentially was almost nothing like to know about. So I saw a doctor on TikTok recently being like, there are some ethical things on food testing for allergies. And I was like, I'm glad someone else is saying that because we really did have an effect on their life.
Well, yeah. And it's like, I've seen clients who have issues with food and things of that nature, not just in the fact that they eat too much or eat too little, but like I've actually heard of studies when I was doing my research for this little talk we're having. Because I want to be prepared, like you, be well educated to make sure I know what the hell I'm talking about.
This is me learning, though.
But so I was listening to some of these things, and so I've watched a bunch of TED Talks and did like actual research on actual papers. And one of the things that kept coming up, and it was such an interesting. I don't want to say the person speaking didn't notice it, but I'm sitting here with my trauma and addiction brain, right? Like I'm sitting here thinking about trauma and addiction. I hear words like recovery, relapse. things like that. And I hear it from a MD who's talking about they are, let's see, what was her title? She was a obesity, like it's a new designation within MDs in America where they're actually obese, specifically dealing with obesity.
Like a specialty?
Yeah, it's a specialty now.
Like, can you get board certified?
Yeah, board certified obesity
in obesity medicine.
Yeah,
obesity.
Yeah, and she was talking about it, and she's like, and there's hope, and you can recover, and you can, you will have real. And I'm like, we're talking about addiction here.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah, and so like then I have this Brit who I'm listening to that's doing this TED talk, and she's talking about addiction, recovery, or she's talking about recovery and relapse, and I'm like, you realize y'all are talking about addiction, and so this was funny for me. With the first rehab I ever worked at. We had a person come in who struggled with anorexia. And so I'm sitting there listening to them because they, of course, like not many of the clinicians there, most of them were LCDCs, which is a licensed chemical dependency counselor. Not many of them were fully master's level like I was. So I'm sitting there going, okay, I know a little bit about anorexia. I know a little bit about eating disorders. But one of the individuals who worked there actually works exclusively prior to coming there at an eating disorder clinic. And so that really, when we were talking, she actually shifted my opinion on what eating disorders were, because when you talk about eating disorders, most people think of anorexia.
Yeah, I was thinking, how do we define this? Because when you make a whole, I guess anytime you change a whole viewpoint, what path do you take?
Well, it's called disordered eating. So it can be to the limitation or the excess.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about... And so I'm sitting here thinking about me. And so at the time, my grandfather had just passed away. And so my grandfather was really weird, and don't judge me on YouTube or wherever. Homeboy loved banana moon pies and Dr. Pepper with peanuts in them.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Together?
Yeah.
You
put the
That's a flavor.
It's salty and sweet. But that was his thing. And like when he would pick me up and we would go anywhere, that was what he would buy. And so after he passed away, I noticed that my truck had lots of banana moon pie wrappers and lots of Dr. Pepper bottles.
I'm judging you now. I
Yeah.
wasn't judging you just for that.
But, well, yeah, now the car is completely spotless, so I don't do that anymore.
You ate a banana moon pie.
You
Yeah.
recovered.
I'm in recovery. From my banana moon pie addiction. But I would do that, and then I would go get Hostess cookies or the little Debbies and stuff, and I would eat them. And I didn't think anything of it. But growing up, anytime I was sad, anytime I was upset, my grandma would be like, oh, here's some cookies. Oh, here's a little Debbie. Oh, here's this. And it was comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And so after they passed, it was like this part of me just like, that's all I wanted to do. And then, of course, going to school full-time, working in a rehab clinic, there was that's constant stress.
Yeah.
And so, I would get out of work and I would stop and buy an ice cream cone or Dr. Pepper, and I'd drive home eating the ice cream, but I didn't eat healthy. And so really looking at it at that point, I was like, damn, I have disordered eating. I am eating my emotions.
Because you're eating for emotional gratification
Exactly.
and not eating for nutrition.
And so fast forward to when I started this shot last May, I was in the middle of a legal situation. I didn't do anything wrong.
Okay.
Didn't do anything wrong. I had to go after somebody who wasn't paying me. So I'm sitting there on the phone with my lawyer, and so I have this routine. And if you're in therapy, your therapist talks to you about building a routine, and I have my routine. So on Thursday mornings, I have my shot here, but then after here, I'll go pick up tacos. And so I'll go pick up tacos for my wife and I, and I'll come home. And so we had eaten. This was about noon, and my lawyer calls, and she's telling me.
Is it before or after you're on the shot? Is that
After.
right when you started?
This was about June, July.
Okay.
So I'm 2 months into my shot here, and my lawyer calls, and she's reciting the recent nonsense of what the other party is telling her, and I'm just I can just feel myself getting mad.
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, I had just eaten.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a taco, because now I don't eat that much. I'm a bird. Don't look like it, but I'm an emu.
Yeah, you lost so much weight.
I'm an emu. But I'm sitting there and I'm getting angry, because it's dealing with lawyers.
Yeah.
You hear the stupidity that people are saying. And I'm just like, I want a freaking honey bun. And in that moment on the phone, I was like, I was hurrying my lawyer up off the phone because my first thought was, I'm going to go to the gas station and I'm going to buy a honey bun. And I'm like, I'm not hungry.
So not only is it the hunger part, it's your brain using food as a distraction technique. So it's like, this moment that I'm in is stressing me out a lot. I don't like this. And so your brain's like, that's fine. Let's think about some food. Let's plan out that honey bun trip, which is a heck of a lot more fun.
Yeah.
So can you therapy that with, is it dopamine? And like,
so that's a maladaptive coping technique. So that's like, anytime. So you think about alcohol or addiction. So like the person becomes stressed. They're most of the time we see it when you're dealing with somebody with addiction who has a moment of quiet. So their brain becomes quiet and they're not doing anything.
I was bad about car drives.
Boredom. Like I get bored. And so when they're bored, they actually have to listen to what's going on in their head. And so like I was in that morning, like I was not bored, I was angry. And
but so you didn't want to be listening to that stuff that's in your head.
Exactly. So my maladaptive coping technique was eating unhealthy things. And so like it really is that negative reinforcer because like you get the dopamine hit, right? Like you eat this thing that's a sugary snack, and I will tell you now, these things do not taste as good as they did. No. They're horrible.
Isn't that weird?
Yes.
Like, because like I can get me some McDonald's chicken nuggets and burger. I don't know. But then after I like don't and I eat those, I'm like, this doesn't taste like food. Like they're not good.
That's how I feel about pizza. Pizza always sounds good to me. I go get a pizza.
Yeah, no,
not that good.
Not a lot. I like
homemade pizza's a little different.
I like pizza. I like all pizzas.
You don't agree?
No.
That's how I feel about pizza.
Well,
No.
it's like you go and like we because my wife is also in her. She's doing. She's in school for therapy as well, and she's finishing up. And so one of the things that
hold on, hey, can you check that?
I think the screen just went dark, but the green light's still on.
Oh, your wife?
Yeah, I'll make sure that we're still.
We've got 3 of the cameras.
Okay, so she's doing her master's, and like we've been busy lately, and so it's like we're getting more of those fast meals because time, right? There's only so much of it a day, and so like.
Oh, I have a whole other. I could do a whole episode on that. How much that sucks.
Like, yeah, the food tastes like crap.
Yeah.
Like we had pizza last night, and she's like, "Do you want anything on?" I was like, "Yes, flavor."
Yeah.
Because it's not the same. But like.
But or still, it's good enough for a dopamine hit, I guess.
Yeah, and like so like where as a therapist, I actually see several people who deal with weight loss, and so that's one of the reasons why I came here, because they were telling me about their stories, they were telling me what they were going through, and I'm noticing the weight loss in them, and so I'm like, this is amazing. Like do I believe this is the silver bullet? No, we've all talked about that. I do believe that. This is one of those things where you have to partner with a therapist as you walk through it, because you're seeing these traits. Like I'm seeing, like I'm a therapist and I'm seeing this stuff. Like I know what to look for. Like, and I can't imagine being somebody who has no background, has no experience in therapy, and like having that realization sitting on the couch of I'm angry and I want something to eat. Because you take the shot and you're not hungry.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's been a huge thing. Yes, is that people, when they start to take the shot and they're not able to use that as a coping skill, it can get depressed. Like we've had some depression because, and they'll say that. They'll be like, I love this and now I can't have that. And then they have to sit with those thoughts and they don't have that coping skill. So yeah, therapy would be so important to help teach us some coping skills that we've never needed because we could eat some cake.
So working in treatment, I realized often, you take away their drugs and their alcohol, right? A lot of people go to rehab and they gain weight very quickly. And they're eating 2 plates from the kitchen and they've got family bringing them junk food. And it's a physiological process and an emotional process going on there. Plus Seroquel, yes.
They have snacks available at Seroquel time.
Yeah,
the general store.
The general store and the candy. They can't keep candy in stock, specifically chocolate.
Yeah.
Like you can attest to this. Like the different people who use different DOCs, which is drug of choice, have specific types of things they eat.
Yep.
Chocolate is opioids.
Wow. What's meth?
Caffeine.
What's weed?
I
Is
feel
that a
like that's
drug
just
of
a
choice?
whole different
That's-
process in
Like,
general.
I think weed is pretty much anything. Like,
But,
there's way
like,
combination.
Alcoholics, it's just any sugar.
Yeah.
Like, you'll see them going for tons of sugar and carbs.
Yeah.
But like, you've taken away their usual coping mechanism,
So they're substituting
and they've
it for
turned
food.
to food, the acceptable.
Acceptable. Because
Yeah.
you have to
Yes,
eat.
because you have to eat.
Yeah.
There is no person on this planet who cannot eat. We all have to eat. And so like people talk about alcoholism. Well, it's legal. I can drink.
Mm-hmm.
You have to eat. You, I, everyone in the world has to eat something. And so
Which makes it so much harder because then we don't get the abstinence option.
Yep.
You know, like just don't do drugs anymore. It's hard, but at least, you know, we have a plan. But like don't eat again. And then we get into all the rabbit holes of what to eat and how to eat and all of those things.
Yes.
and it then becomes now more disordered eating because now you're not hungry.
Yeah, yes.
But you need to eat, and this is where I'm at right now, where it's like I'm not hungry, but I know I need to eat. So what am I gonna go grab? Like, what do I want to eat? Well,
And I just won't, and then go binge eat sugar because
Yeah.
your body is going to win.
Mhm.
You can't starve yourself, especially in this modern world. You can't starve yourself. Your body is going to be like, nope, we're eating that.
Yeah.
And so it'll get to the point where it's like we're eating these Sour Patch Kids, because you have not had any sugar today.
yeah.
And so that's interesting too. That like you can set yourself up for that disordered eating.
And it all.
But then why don't we just eat the protein in the middle of the day? Like really, why do we sabotage ourselves? Why don't we just grab the protein? I don't.
No, but tell me this. Like, how often do you get to like have the really good steak, and like how often do you get to have the really good food? Like, if you had that choice, are you gonna really spend the time to cook it? That's what it boils down
What
to:
do you-
convenience.
Oh yeah, no, I don't.
Like,
Yeah, I was telling her I did a month of completely. We have our crafted cutout, so
Mhm.
that's like if you're really wanting to go strict on a diet. I've done some research. I got one for you. It pretty much is. If you can look at it and know what it is at its source, it's fine. So, like...
well, it's natural eating.
Yes, naturally. So we don't do processed stuff. And so I did this. And my biggest complaint to her, it was like, I feel so good.
Mhm.
The food is absolutely delicious. Once you integrate it into your life, it's actually not too hard. But it's hard to have that access all the time.
Mhm.
Like if I wanted to eat right, I couldn't. Like I mean, it wasn't too bad when I was cooking all the time at home.
Yeah.
But what if you're on vacation? You just can't do it.
And
it makes me mad.
You're blessed in that you live 2 minutes from where you work. So even if it is a day that you're here by yourself, you could still step out for a couple of minutes and go grab some food from home.
Ideal.
Yeah.
Yes, I could
And it
buy
was still
whatever I
difficult.
want. I love to cook. I can do it. I live
I
2
work
miles away.
from home. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't do it. It's time.
Yeah.
We sacrifice our time. Well, okay, we it's not that we sacrifice our time. We try to guard our time. And this is what we talked about earlier about routine. Like, I am not a breakfast person. Like, my wife is an amazing cook. I've talked about it with Camille a lot.
I know, I really want to go over for dinner.
Like, but what ends up happening is she makes these really good meals and she makes this really good food. And there are certain things she'll be like, "You want me to make you an omelet?" And I'm like, "No, I'm good. I don't like eggs. I'm not a big egg person. I think eggs are weird."
Okay, I have a question about this just from my own personal life.
Okay.
So I love to cook.
Mhm.
And my partner was a full-grown man when he came to me, right? So, he had his own...
Full-grown man-child.
Yes.
hope. We hope.
He's just like Sheldon, actually. Like, if you imagine Sheldon, that is my partner, okay? I am with Sheldon. For real. Every episode from child to... Okay. So, my love language is to feed people. Like, I love to cook. I'll do catering. My kids, yesterday my daughter was like, I need a lunch. And I was like, how many lunches for other kids can I send? I seriously did. And then she was like, all my friends loved it. And I was like, how about next Tuesday? I'll just cook for everybody. Like, I love that. But my partner just doesn't have those eating habits. He would rather have, he eats like Chick-fil-A or Whataburger.
Yeah.
That's all. And he's big on portion, restriction. And so He's able to live that way. But does it cause her any stress when you don't want her food? Because that causes me a lot of stress.
Yes. So that was one of the let's see. It was about 5 months in. We had leftovers piling out the. We have 2 fridges, one in the house and one in the garage, and there was leftovers everywhere. And because I used to eat a ton of food, and now it's like I'm a bird, like pecking at stuff. And she would be like, "Do you just not like my cooking anymore?" And I'm like, "No, it's good. It's just you make too much." So now we're on that backswing of like cooking, and it's like, oh, we're half the recipe. I made chicken gnocchi soup, the Olive Garden clone, on Sunday, and I made one recipe. We still have a freaking thing of Tupperware in the fridge. And I'm like, that was only one recipe. Like, do we have to cut stuff in half now? Like,
well, that's a whole financial thing. Like, you talk about this drug and it costs for here, it's $300, and that's a pretty fair universal market price. And it's not that hard to justify the cost because you do one recipe. So,
well, it's the food aspect of it. It's like, what are you wanting to consume? Like I have really good friends, and they give us lots of like venison and stuff like that, and like I have probably like 20 packages of dried sausage, and that's like before my tooth had an issue. Like I was eating that all the time, and so that was one of my I would eat that with a little bit of cheese. But even then, it's like I'll go downstairs and I'll be like, okay, I'm hungry. It's 2:00. I need to eat something. I'm gonna eat, and then I won't be hungry for the rest of the day. Like and then my wife cooks dinner.
And she's ready to serve you dinner, and you're not eating it.
Are you hungry? And I'm like, no.
I have a hypothesis. This goes back to just plain old biology. The men are the collector or the
hunter-gatherers.
Sourcers. They get the source. They get the main, the basics for what you need, and then it's the woman's job. And of course, it's 220-25. I can't say crap like that, but like I'm talking historical, anthropological humans. Then the woman, because she couldn't go out, her job was to take those resources and be able to give something and make something. And so I think I've thought that it's just that primal thing in me where it's like my job is to take that and give it back. And I don't get to do that.
You bring that point up, and then like I said, I did a lot of research, and one of the things that I was listening to on a TED Talk from one of these obesity specialists was they were talking about how as hunter-gatherers as a species, our bodies developed the natural ability to sustain weight for when we didn't have food. So anthropological, whatever that word is. We have this ability to do so, but how many people that we know go without food for 2 to 3 days?
Yeah, no.
Your body is, you are evolutionary, and I'm not talking about evolutionary from a macro perspective. I'm looking at a micro perspective. And I can argue that with people all day long. Macro versus micro. Anyways, but from a micro perspective, we have developed these abilities and these traits to hold on to food, hold on to calories, hold on to weight for when we don't have access to
while
food.
They're out getting the deer, it takes 3 or 4 days on the hunt.
Exactly.
And so we have to...
And so we have this ability, and we don't need it. Like, you can drive down the road, and...
We have insane access to food.
Yeah. Well, we also were bred to eat the food. Yeah. Because if there was food, it wasn't coming every day. It was coming every 2 or 3 days. And so our brains say, eat the food, which is just a natural response. You see the food, you eat the food. Now it's wrong because there's food everywhere.
Well, is it food?
Yeah, true.
Like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to get banned by, like, every fast food place.
Big food.
But is it really food? You mentioned McDonald's. I cannot eat McDonald's. It does not taste like food to me.
Yeah, it really doesn't. It's only like an emotional attachment that I have to it.
And, like, that's me, Whataburger. Like, I guess
growing up,
Whataburger
I don't like Whataburger either.
Really? I have to go now.
Their fries
done.
I don't like their fry. Like their fried stuff.
Well, you gotta go when they're really busy so they're fresh.
No.
Yeah.
They have good teeth. Charles eats there. As I said, it's one of his 2 restaurants, so I get tea.
But yeah, it's like that emotional connections back. Like you said, it's emotional connection for McDonald's for you. For me, it was Whataburger. Like that was what we went. That's where we went growing up. Like we didn't go to McDonald's.
So how? Okay. So we're back to the beginning. We've got this body dysmorphia. It requires a couple things. It requires not being happy with something.
Mm-hmm.
It requires the drastic changes involved. Drastic measures to change it. Mm-hmm. And then, what was the third?
Significant distress within your life.
Okay, yes. So...
And those are all oversimplifications, but that's just the general idea.
Like your body is causing you significant stress in your life?
Or just something...
Or you have significant stress?
The things that you're... So, looking at the extreme measures. So, I spend 4 hours grooming. And I don't have the ability to... Because I don't like the way my hair looks. I spend 4 hours grooming, so therefore I'm missing out on other things, or I'm late to work, or I miss out on sleep because I'm so fixated on this one thing I do not like about myself.
Okay.
So, what are these feelings that I'm hearing from patients?
What do we call it whenever you just have the first 2?
Yeah,
and
what
not
is
the last one? When
you don't have that don't have a connection anymore.
It will be there though. The significant distress will be there in some way, shape, or form. You can't. So any mental health condition, there's always the aspect of distress. So you have to have the distress for it to be a diagnosable thing. So like if you have anxiety, okay, everybody has anxiety, but not everybody is diagnosed with an anxiety disorder. The thing with body dysmorphia is it falls under the category of OCD because there's that fixation.
They're fixating on that thing.
That obsessive fixation. So while
not having a connection is different than a fixation. It's actually kind of the opposite.
Yeah. So one of the things that you can look at if you're looking specifically to see if a person has body dysmorphia, which I think anybody going through this process will have some semblance of that, because like myself, I went to a dentist's at the beginning of February and was weighed for the first time, and I had lost almost 100 pounds. And I still look at myself in the mirror and see that 100-pound heavier person. Yeah. And so it's like, that is a form of body dysmorphia. Now, is it like clinically diagnosable? Probably not. Like, are you taking the extremes? Are you doing the extremes? Are you having those? But there is that idea that is there where you're not connecting the two. And so the thing that I talk about with all my clients who are going through this is, okay, those who've had substantial weight loss, 100, 150 pounds, I actually have them do exercises to connect with that part of themselves.
That's really interesting.
So that they can actually say goodbye. Because you're grieving.
Yeah.
Like you're looking at it, I don't look like I was getting dressed this morning and I noticed like my big old belly, and I noticed how it's like not TMI, like it used to be just big and round. Now it's like starting to like crater like the moon.
Softening.
Like
I can say
softening.
exactly those words about my boobs. Like my boobs used to be pretty good, and since I was fat, like my boobs were good and big.
Yeah.
And then
I don't know. I'm not.
It's the same description of your belly. The same description of your belly. You just say that to my boobs. But yeah, I definitely see that as a grieving. And then like for me, so I did have big boobs, and then I was always like just big enough that they were big. But then I had years, so I had 4.5 years of breastfeeding. So like not all, like they were my boobs, and they were nice. I was proud of it. And then now they're not.
And she had a strong connection to her boobs.
Yeah, I did.
You need to write a goodbye letter.
Yeah.
So like what would I do to connect with my boobs? I'm serious. How do you cope with that?
Coping with your boobs.
Because I am dealing with a loss. Like, I'm looking at them in the mirror, and it's like, oh, I am the big, pretty boob girl, and now it's like, you're not.
Well, connecting with that part of yourself. So, like, in IFS, which is Internal Family Systems, they talk about how you have different parts of yourself, and these parts are either protectors or firemen, or they do different, they perform different roles. And so, we're talking about a physiological, your boobs.
Talking about my boobs today, Mike. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
You didn't know what you were coming into.
I did not know what I was walking into. But really looking at, like, why that...
Well, no, okay, so
it's
my boobs.
Boobs.
Why
it's
are
the
my
boobs
boobs?
thing.
Because I outgrew my children. because my children grew into strong, smart kids that didn't need to suck on mom's boob anymore. And then because I lost 130 pounds. And so, like, I can understand those and be totally okay with it. But.
So is it, this is the therapist coming out. So is it the boobs or is it the loss of your femininity that you assigned your shape with your breasts and, you know, the entirety of yourself
totally
feminine?
Yeah, because honestly, I was thinking if they were nice enough that I could prop them up in a bra in the right way, y'all are all looking at my boobs. I know you are. You know, everybody, what he was staring. I didn't wear a bra today, and it's embarrassing. But okay, because I think honestly, if I had like a way that I could put them in a bra that like would still let me wear necklines and stuff, because I think it was the neckline, and that I guess it is that femininity of that neckline. Because I guess I don't really care about my boobs. Like I said, I have a partner. He's fine. Like I don't need them, but I do. I guess I do. I like that thing. So what do I do? Find other ways to look feminine?
Well, that's one. That's the oversimplification. But then accepting yourself. That's the hard part. So when you're looking at, like, we're talking about, like, our bodies now, looking at ourselves in a mirror, like, when I say that, everyone knows that I'm talking about standing naked in front of a mirror.
After you poop.
Like,
Yep.
No. No, after you get out of the shower, not after you poop. I don't know many people. Actually, no, I do know somebody who strips down to poop. That's.
Oh, well, I meant, but like, you only look in the mirror and wait to assess yourself when you can weigh yourself at the lowest weight.
Which means after you poop.
After you poop.
Yeah, no, that's not something I do. I don't look.
Not
at
everybody
myself.
did that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we were both like, yeah, of course. Okay. So when you're
real
looking at
therapy,
Now you know.
real therapy right now. Like,
when
there's
you're
going to be
looking
a
at yourself.
spin-off podcast.
Yeah, that's pretty much what the YouTube is. Like, because the podcast comes out pretty normal, and this is the YouTube.
But once you can, like we were talking about, like, looking at yourself, there's got to be, you have to start acknowledging that, yes, your body is changing, acknowledging that there are things that you do not like about yourself, but then start looking for ways that you can change that. So, you know, looking at different manufacturers of undergarments, bras. There, I'll say the word.
I thought he was going to say ears.
The jacked up thing about all of this, YouTube land and people, is my focus in college was sexual addiction. I can talk about sex all day long, but you put me in a room with a bunch of women, and I'm sitting here as the only guy. My I'm like, okay, I have to be very, like, professional.
Brazier.
Yes. Brazier.
Look at you one of those 1950s maiden forms of the cones.
If it worked, I would do it.
Madonna.
Yeah, exactly. But trying to find different ways for you to have what you want, and that's like to give you still that femininity, but also understand that it's not just your body that makes you feminine. It's you.
Yeah.
So having that understanding that it's not just this one aspect of myself that makes me feminine, it's the entirety of me. Because even you started off on the boobs, and it was like, I'm not hearing boobs. I'm hearing I missed my femininity.
Yeah.
That was a part of who I am.
Yeah, and when I think about it that way, I can definitely say that, because I don't really care about my boobs. You know, like, nobody sees them, but I do care about the way I feel in a dress.
So,
So hopefully your partner.
Yeah, of course. He probably has his analysis of them too, with Mr. Sheldon. I check him off. I probably have like an 86 grade. I'm sure he has it. Yeah.
Not an 86. It's almost an A. So you said that, like, you need to accept yourself. And that made me think, like, whenever I'm looking in the mirror, I still see Camille at 244 pounds.
Yeah.
And it's hard to accept whatever this is. And I think it may be because I have a fear of how easy it would be to go back to Camille at 244.
So you don't want to love it.
So I don't want to accept this, because what if I go back to that?
Yeah,
that'll make that so much harder than whatever I am.
Because I've got this in my head. It's an okay thing.
Yep, I accepted her.
Risk.
It was fine-ish. Like, I did come here and do this. I got to the point that I'm at. But I have, like, a fear of... I guess it's just acceptance. Just accepting this body.
It's like when you're pregnant, too, and you don't want to tell people yet because you're afraid you're going to lose a baby.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, you just... you can't love it yet because, like, what if it's not gonna be?
Yeah, what if it's not real? What if it doesn't stay like this?
Fear of loss.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Grief.
Are these abandonment issues?
I think that's.
Well, no. It's a fear of loss.
Yeah.
Like, you've gained something. Like, okay, you're pregnant. Okay, you have a baby. You don't want to talk about having the baby because you're afraid that you're going to lose the baby. That's a fear of loss. Fear of losing your new self. You know, get a new job and you're doing this new thing and I don't want to lose that. I enjoy it. Like, it's a fear of loss. So it really is grieving. And that's looking at this weight loss. You were grieving the self that you were. Like, you were grieving the bigger boobed Robin.
Mm-hmm.
You were grieving the bigger Camille. You've lost this part of yourself that you identified with for such a long time. The bigger Michael was the life of the party. He didn't care what people thought, even though at the back of his head he knew he was fat. Like, my wife, it was funny, we had an argument about this, and if she watches this, she's going,
we don't watch them.
My ass. But we had an argument on Sunday, and there was a point where we were first dating, and I asked her, do you think I'm fat? I'm over 500 pounds. Like, anyone looking at me would know that I am fat. But through our conversation, it was not the question. The question was not the important part. It was really what I wanted to know.
Will you be honest?
No.
Oh.
Do you find me attractive?
Okay.
Like, we attribute our weight, we attribute personal attributes, physical attributes to our level of attraction. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, so I was asking the question, do you think I'm fat? Anybody in their right mind would go, yeah, you're still fat. Like, you can lose more weight. What is it, like 42% of Americans are obese?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. So it's like 42%. That's
yeah, and that's not even overweight, which is like another 35%. Yeah. So we're talking like 75-80% of the population having obese.
And so these people, like, you could ask the question, am I fat? And of course the answer is yes, but is that the real question? Or is the question, do you find me attractive? Do you think that I'm still attractive to you because I've gained weight? Or do you still think that I'm attractive because I don't have the shape and the curves that I used to? Do you still find me attractive because I've lost all this weight and I'm now a different person? And now you don't even know what's attractive because you were so brainwashed by yourself that I was accepted. I was, and this is, do I say this?
Oh, yeah.
The whole concept of what we see in society now about accepting people for everything.
This is what you texted me earlier.
Yeah.
Like, it's... I was watching a YouTube short about this individual who's suing Lyft.
Oh, I heard that story. Yes.
And, like, everyone...
Like, she didn't fit in the car, and the guy said he couldn't drive her, and this was legitimate for his axles.
Yeah, like, I feel bad for this person because how do you look in the mirror and not realize that you have a problem? Like, and it's this whole, like, I'm fat. I get to say this. Like, the whole concept of, like, fat shaming. It's like, no, they're like, is what's the Six Flags? Is Six Flags fat shaming me because I can't fit on a ride? No.
They're looking at safety numbers and looking at if it's this point, then the risk is too high.
Exactly. And so it's like we as a society have gotten to this place where it's like, oh, no, you're shaming me because of my body size. And it's like, no, we're legitimately saying there's a possibility of an issue here that we need to address. Like, MRI machines. Like, if you are above a certain weight, they send you to a veterinarian clinic, and you will be given an MRI at a veterinarian clinic because you can't fit in a normal MRI machine. Like,
but if everybody had those, then hospitals wouldn't be able to run because they couldn't afford higher machines.
Yeah, because those machines are freaking expensive.
Yeah.
Like, open MRI machines, like they're now more available than they were 15 years ago, but I had to do open MRI at one point. And a normal MRI was like $1,500. An open MRI was like $3,000. It's the same damn machine. There's just less of it. Why is it more? But because you have to accommodate for a person's size, like Like, I remember...
It seems narcissistic to just require that kind of extra payment. Or, like, you know, because if they're going to have to pay more for you.
We're all in the medical field here. We know how that works. Like, it's...
Yeah, true.
It's not so much that it's the way, like, the cost. The machine is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there has to be, and I'm not defending by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just looking at the point that was
This
made.
is, like she said, we're going to do a whole podcast on this because it really is, what is that line between body shaming and just admitting reality?
Exactly.
Like,
well,
I'm not being rude, but,
exactly.
you know, like, some people are fat and need some help.
Exactly. And so I was thinking about this the other day when I was preparing for our talk, and I was like, we're going to do one talk? Like, this feels like it could be, like, weeks and weeks.
We could do a whole series.
Like,
That's the beauty of editing.
Yeah. But there's so much of this, like, where it's like, okay, so why do you have this problem? So look at it from the perspective of, okay, body dysmorphia, issues with weight. Why do you have this problem? What I have found working with people over the past several years who have disordered eating is it all boils down to trauma. There is something that's happened in your life that has led you to use this as a coping mechanism. And it's not healthy. It's the same as any addiction. It's not healthy.
It's the same thing as addiction.
Yeah, it is addiction.
Yes.
All right, I have a kind of basic question, but I'm really genuinely, I don't know. So when you're on the phone with the attorney and it's stressed, what is a healthy coping mechanism? Like, what could we do in those moments to, I mean, because I know being present is really important. Like, we have emotions, and going through those and actually legitimizing those feelings is really valid. But, like, in that moment, what do you do?
So in that moment, I'm thinking about, you know, why am I angry? Or I'm angry because somebody is just flat out denying something that is a clear and logical fact. Okay, so in that specific to my moment. And so a healthy coping mechanism at that time would have probably been to ground myself using 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or other breathing techniques or physical grounding techniques. The simple grounding technique that everyone can do without any prompting is walking into a bathroom, turning cold water on, and splashing cold water in their face. It is a physical grounding technique that latches you to that moment, and you're not spiraling out thinking about the anger, thinking about the things you want to do, thinking about all these things. That is a simple grounding technique. Breathing techniques. You can go on YouTube. You can go on YouTube and find different breathing techniques, things of that nature. If you have a therapist, call your therapist. I am a crisis trained therapist. I deal with, like, I get phone calls from my clients all the time. Like, I go to text messages like, hey, I'm really struggling with this. Have you done your breathing technique? No, thank you.
Have you done a factory reset?
Yeah, like, have you jiggled
turn it
the
off
cord?
and back on?
Yeah, if you jiggle the cord, you know. But that's one of the things that I do. So it's like, there's going to be those moments. You have to recognize those moments. And so it's like, okay, are you working through the reasons why you're getting angry? Are you actually dealing with these situations? Or are you just compartmentalizing and separating it off?
Because, you know, the trick about that stuff is, like, it's all good. You're going to deal with it.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're going to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And I have a friend right now who, her son passed away. And so she has taken his children. And just imagine that. She's got a full-time job. She's grieving the loss of her son. And she has 2 children who also have loss. You know, so they're 5 and 4, and they just lost their father. It is just so stressful. And she's not having time to grieve, right? Because she's got to get up, or the babies need something, and she's got to work, and she doesn't have time to grieve. And I'm getting a lot of messages from her in the car rides home. Yeah, because then that's where she's like, I'm losing it, and I'm pulling. Because, like, you can put it aside, but it is going to come out.
Well, it goes back to the whole eating thing, right? Like, making yourself healthy meals. So to have an appropriate healthy lifestyle, you have to cook, you have to take care of yourself in an appropriate healthy fashion. So you have to carve that time out so that you can take care of yourself. Therapy is one of those things that you need to carve out time for yourself. Like, I know as the therapist in the room, like, everybody's like, yeah, you're just saying that because you want.
I love therapy.
I am an advocate for therapy. I am an old school country boy who is an advocate for therapy. There's an oxymoron in there somewhere. I grew up with the pick yourself up by the bootstraps and just suck it up, buttercup. You're gonna be fine. And there are some of those moments. Like I said, I deal with trauma and addiction. Some of my addiction clients get that a little more firmness because
you need it.
You need it. But there are those times where, like, before I was here, I had a phone call from somebody that was, they're going back to a facility because they need to. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, good. I'm finally glad you're putting yourself to bed, your pride and ego aside, so you can actually realize that you need help. And that's like with your friend, like, encourage her to reach out to someone, and that, like,
and that's why I'm getting the calls, because it's like, you know, call me when you need something.
Yeah. But then also, that's not, you can't live in that space either, because it's only going. So that's the
yeah, because she's not going to get any free time ever, because the second she's free, it's coming out.
Oh yeah, and so this is something that most people, you want to peel back the layer on therapy. Most people don't realize that there's something called secondary PTSD. Secondary PTSD is basically you telling someone about your trauma. They can actually obtain post-traumatic stress from hearing about your trauma. Well,
jurors in child cases.
Yeah. But therapists. Mm-hmm. So you look at like the top 5 suicidal heavy.
Yeah, you just saw
therapists are on there.
Yeah.
You know why? Because cops, law enforcement, first responders, military. Who do they all have to go to and talk when there's a problem?
Yeah. Yeah, so you're hearing the worst, and then you're hearing it through situations where it broke them.
Mm-hmm. And so there have been times where I've been sitting in therapy talking with someone, and I'll end the session at the time, and I'll just like turn off my lights and be like, wow. Because I'm getting to see the very dark side of humanity. Mm-hmm. And because I deal with trauma a lot, I see it a lot. And it's challenging. And there, like I said, in those moments, there have been times where it's like, ooh, ice cream.
Yep. Ice cream is so much easier than trauma.
It is, especially when it's Tin Roof Sundae by Bluebell.
Yes, your ice cream came back.
Yes, it did. I haven't bought any more because I ate too much of it. But yeah, it's you know, the body dysmorphia thing. Like not everyone, most individuals who are walking through a weight loss journey such as this, where they have taken a measure to where they're actually taking a medication to help them, whether it's Ozempic, whether it's semaglutide, whether it's Wegovy, whether it's Manjaro, whatever it is, they are going to experience some of these feelings and associated thoughts and concerns as they walk through.
Yeah, this. You're gonna go through a grieving process.
Yeah. And it's really important to be open, honest, and transparent with those who you're working with, your prescribers, and if you have a therapist. That way they can help you kind of navigate the difficulty of just what you're walking through. Because like even my boobs, and it's like, oh no, maybe not my boobs, it's femininity. Mm-hmm. It's the feminine side that I'm missing, or fear of loss.
But if I didn't talk to a therapist and didn't do that, then I'm going to keep fighting the flabby boob problem instead of realizing you should maybe feel feminine in other ways.
Yeah. Well, it's like, so I used to say this when I worked at rehab. Like, people in rehab, they bottle up their emotions and they uncork it and drink it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you bottle it up and eventually you just start consuming it because you believe it. You're going to tell yourself something. Like, when I was bigger, I strutted, like, and I was like, I'm hot, the hot stuff, and I know all this, and I'm sexy and all this. And I might not be everybody's cup of tea, but that's how I believed about myself. And now looking at myself, I'm like, no, I don't feel that way anymore, because that was the ideal version that I put of myself.
Well, that was the one you were comfortable with loving.
Exactly. Because that's who I knew.
Yeah.
And so looking at myself now, it's like, I don't know who this person is.
Yeah.
Like, I'm about to hit a size that I have not been since high school.
Well, for me, like, people treat me so much differently as a provider when I've lost weight. And it sucks. Like, I miss having that tool of them being able to talk to me about it.
Because feeling comfy.
Feeling comfortable. Yes, because now people are like, oh, you don't understand. Like, you don't know. You're skinny.
Oh.
And like, no, I'm a fat kid at heart. I'm a fat kid at heart, and I understand these things. But that's another loss, you know, it's just dealing with the way that people deal with you differently. Like, you don't understand.
So, if I were 2 years ago, before I started this, listening to this conversation that we're all having, I'd be like, wow. Like, all of you are complaining or feeling negative about this amazing thing that I want so bad.
Yeah.
Like, we all went into this, we wanted to lose weight badly and change our body. And now we've gotten to this point and we're like, this is weirder than I thought it would be.
So it's because we never really addressed the issues to begin with.
Yeah.
Well, then you look at the video. Like, you're skinny, I'm not. I am still clearly very overweight.
But see, for us as providers, that helped.
Yeah.
Because
No, I know. But what I'm saying is, watching that video, the bigger Camille would probably be looking to me going, wait a minute, something... Because you're still, like, I can see myself in the camera. Like, I know that I do not look very comfortable in this chair. Like, I saw myself on camera and was like, wow! Can I bring my own chair from home? It's massive, so it doesn't make me look massive. Like
the king's chair.
Oh, massive leather chair. I love it. But I know people have told me in session when they start talking about their weight, they're like, well, you understand. And I'm like, you see this much of me. You see my chest into my head. I keep a long beard. Why? Because I have many chins.
You have one turn. Yeah. That's why a lot of men
don't have that luxury.
There was a joke in there, but we're not gonna go there. But yeah,
so no,
don't do the joke.
I was at our skills lab the other day, and one of our skills checkoffs, even as LVNs going into an RN program, is vital signs. So the instructor is watching two of us students do vital signs on each other. And whenever you're doing a manual blood pressure, you should be making sure that you have the appropriate size cuff for arm. And the girl who's doing vital signs on me, she's twig, itty bitty little thing. But she's like, you're skinny, we're going to use the small cuff. And I'm like,
and
what?
It's weird.
Because I don't feel that. I don't see that. Like, it just catches me completely off guard. And I think I've said before, like, as someone who was overweight for a long time, the topic of weight getting brought up immediately, like, bracing for impact. And I still do that. Like, even with a compliment, I'm still like,
the fact that you have tears in your eyes right now because I said
yeah. But it's just weird. Like, it's...
But you say it's attached to trauma, and, like, I had an exact situation like this the other day. I went to the store to buy some clothes. And my mom kept saying, just get the small shirt. Like, it's fine, just get the small. And I'm like, Mom, no, I don't wear small. And then the other lady came out, and she was like, do you want a room? And I was like, no, I'm kind of just thinking I'll get it. And she's like, you wear it small. And it's like, my brain decided that they were all lying. And that was and that sizes have changed. And that's, so it's not like it's even feeling like it's triggering trauma. It's just feeling like I have no perception of it.
Yeah.
Well, you lose sense of self. Okay, so Lane Bryant, Torrid, those are women's
plus size.
Yeah.
Plus size. So men, it's casual male DXL. So now Ralph Lauren has their own big and tall line. And Ralph Lauren to Nautica to DXL. So DXL, I'm a 6LT because I'm tall. Ralph Lauren, I'm a 3XLT. Nautica, I'm a 4XLT.
Yeah, like, are they just trying to make you feel better?
Well, there's part of that. Like, that's why for the longest time I only wore Ralph Lauren because I was like, I'm a 3XLT.
Obviously.
I wore Torrid because I was a size 1.
Yeah,
I get you.
Yeah, so it's like we like, even with the clothing, so like I went okay, so September, it was still summer. I had already lost a significant amount of weight. And my wife was like, you need a new pair of shorts. She's like, you can put your phone in your pocket and they fall off, even with a belt on. And I'm like, they're fine. And like, the legs are like, you know what shorts I'm talking about. The legs are like 3 times the size of my calf or my thigh. Like, they're massive. And she's like, you need a new pair of shorts. I was like, no. So we go down and I try on the shorts. And like, this was, I think, September, October. And I was already at this place where like it was like a 48.50. And I'm like, well, the 48 is snug. I was like, I don't really want to buy it until I'm a 48. And so I just bought a hole punch for the leather hole punch. And I've just added holes to my belt. Yeah, have that response. And so I have this pair of jeans that I bought 10 years ago. Robert Graham. Fancy. If you've never heard of Robert Graham, they're fancy. Like, these are like $300 pair of jeans. And like, I put them on and I buttoned them up and put them on. My wife's like, oh, they look good on you again. I'm like, yeah. Wow, I can fit into these jeans. All in my head going, how the hell am I fitting into these jeans? It's one of those things where it's like, I feel bad for people who are struggling with this and they're trying to do it alone.
Yeah.
Because...
Well, the whole boob and femininity thing, I didn't put that together. Like, I really thought it was my boobs. And, like, now that you say that, it's like, oh, yeah, it's not really my boobs. It's just... Yeah. But I like the way I look when I wear that.
It back. Yes! Dude, we gotta talk about the boobs multiple times.
Yeah.
But it's...
So what do we do in those moments? And what do clients do? Those, like, the moments where we're realizing it. Evaluate it and identify it?
Well, the first thing you do when you're dealing with anything mental health-wise, like, I would recommend a journal, of course, because that's what every therapist tells you to do. But when you notice something like, oh, this femininity versus my boobs, like, what is that? So then you start exploring it, going, okay, so what about how do I feel about my femininity? Do I feel like...
So what's the first question? Yeah. So, like, no, what is the first question? I missed that. So if I'm staring at the mirror saying, oh, those boobs are bad, what steps should I work myself through?
So I would go, okay, so is it, like I did with you, is it really your boobs? Or is it something else?
I think if I was alone, though, I would say it was my boobs.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have connected that to femininity.
Yeah,
so that's why you need a professional, I guess.
That's why you need that external support, because it's like my first thing. Like,
yeah.
I was like,
yeah, it's like so much drama that we just went through.
Like, is it really the boobs, or is it the fact that you feel like...
So then asking yourself, is it really what I'm thinking it is, or is it
challenging
something
the
else?
thoughts. Like, that's classic CBT, challenging the thoughts. But the problem that happens with that is not many people challenge themselves, because what happens when you challenge yourself and, oh, you now realize that it's not your boobs, it's femininity. Well, now where do you go from there?
Well, see, to me, I just go to different line dresses and I can think of stuff. But I see this is where a lot of people really kind of...
And you also are different because you want to know all of the pieces of information.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's the same thing. It's like, now knowing this, I know how to cope with it. I have more information. Yeah. But I don't think that's a common thing. I also have done a ton of therapy and a ton of ketamine. So, like, yeah. Like legal, appropriate ketamine.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes. Yeah, no like K-holes on the street. Nothing like that.
No K-holes on the street.
No.
Oh, and what's the YouTube address? Because I am watching this later.
What is it? We can tag this here. Craft is Sustainable Wellness on YouTube. Yeah.
I'm going to have to
We don't even know the name of our YouTube page. I'm like, oh.
We don't really do any, because, okay, so for us in, like, social media, because, like, maybe it's good for people to know because we're on social media all the time, like, we don't like that. We don't like social media. So, seriously, we had Baylin. She'll come on the video and do an intro, exit probably. She just follows us around and records us, and then we don't ever watch it.
Yeah.
I've never watched our videos. I do not listen to our podcast. I would never watch one of our YouTube videos.
Recommending it is really hard.
Tell me about that. Why
Yeah.
Why are you scared to see yourself on camera?
I feel like it's not me. Like, maybe imposter syndrome somewhere. Like, who am I to have these conversations that people should listen to? I'm educated. I know things. I've done this for a while. So that doesn't make sense. But I'm not going to watch myself talk about it.
I don't want to know all the things people critique it about.
Yeah, I'll pick it apart.
I talk too fast. I move too much in the chair. Like...
But...
And that just makes me feel self-conscious.
But why? Because you don't want to be judged?
Yeah, I think that's it. Because I don't want to be the things that they say I am.
But only you get to identify who you are, not them.
Yeah, and I feel like that most of my life. But, like, in this one, it's just like, no.
Could it be because of the topics that you're discussing?
I don't necessarily think that, because those are the ones I'm most common, or most happy to talk about.
Confident in discussing.
They're what I do all day long.
Yeah.
So, talking isn't so bad.
I think for me, another thing... Like, I can sit here and talk with either of you and feel comfortable in this conversation. I've had many conversations with both of you. Talking to them, everybody on the internet,
I guess, yeah, because I can know between me and you the vibe. I can feel the vibe. And like there, I don't know.
It's flipped for me.
Huh.
Really?
Uh-huh. This is very anxiety producing for me.
Oh, that was for us too. We've had to wait.
First.
Yeah.
You've heard me in group before where I say, like, so I worked at a rehab. I worked at a rehab for about 3 or 4 years, and I would have to do groups. One of the biggest things that was a struggle for me was group work. Getting up in front of an audience and talking to people. I don't, like, I have a fear of public speaking. And so, like, I can feel the cameras. I can actually feel all of them. And I know that there people will be watching this. And so there's that fear associated with that.